The Lost Key Part 3. The Drowned Machine. The Hudson River at 3 a.m. was not water. It was liquid obsidian, heavy, cold, and smelling of diesel and rot. The fog had rolled in off the Atlantic, erasing the skyline of the city, leaving only the muffled groans of foghorns and the rhythmic slap of waves against the rusted hull of the salvage tug the Barnacle. Julian Mercer sat on a coil of wet rope on the aft deck, his hands shaking. It wasn't the cold. It was the key. Since they had escaped the library, the artifact had changed. It was no longer just a brass mechanism. It had begun to weep a strange, viscous fluid that smelled like ozone, a lubricant for a machine that shouldn't exist. Julian looked at his right hand. The geometric lines that had appeared on his palm in the steam tunnel were spreading. They were faint, glowing with a bioluminescent blue under the skin, tracing the path of his radial nerve up his wrist. "It's bonding to you," Evelyn Hartwood said. She was standing by the wheelhouse, wrapped in a heavy naval coat, watching him with an expression that hovered between fascination and fear. "Is that what you call it?" Julian flexed his fingers. The movement felt smooth, hydraulic almost. "It feels like infection. It's rewriting my nervous system." Vane's theories on the interface between man and machine were radical, Evelyn said, stepping closer. He didn't believe in tools. He believed in extensions. "The key isn't designed to be held, Julian. It's designed to be worn." "And you knew this?" Julian snapped, looking up at her. The trust between them was fraying, worn thin by the gunfire and the near-death experiences. "I suspected," she admitted. "But I didn't know it would happen this fast." The key recognizes a compatible host. It's waking up because you have the aptitude. You see the patterns. "I fix clocks," Julian said bitterly. "I don't merge with ancient alien technology." "It's not alien. It's industrial alchemy," a gravelly voice interrupted. Silas, the captain of the Barnacle, stepped out of the wheelhouse. He was a mountain of a man, his face a roadmap of scars and broken blood vessels, holding a lit cigar that sizzled in the mist. He was Evelyn's contact, a man who scavenged the river bottom for things the city wanted to forget. "We're at the coordinates," Silas grunted, gesturing with the cigar toward the black water. "The drop zone, Trans-Hudson Tube, Section 9. Depth is 200 feet. Current is 5 knots. It's a suicide dive." "We have the bell," Evelyn said. "The bell is a coffin with a window," Silas spat. "I checked the winch. It'll hold, but if you get snagged on the wreckage down there, I can't come get you. The river eats what it takes." Julian stood up, the heavy messenger bag containing the Codex of Foundation slung over his shoulder. He looked at the black water. Somewhere down there, buried in the silt and the wreckage of a century-old disaster, was the third door. "We don't have a choice," Julian said. "Frost knows we're heading for the water. He'll have sonar sweeping the river by dawn." "Frost?" Silas muttered, spitting a piece of tobacco over the rail. "Nasty business, crossing Caleb Frost. He pays good money for silence." Julian caught a flicker in Silas's eyes, a momentary shift that didn't match his gruff exterior. A warning bell went off in Julian's head, but he pushed it down. They needed the equipment. "Let's get suited up," Julian said. The diving bell was a spherical relic from the 1960s, smelling of grease and stale sweat. It was cramped, barely large enough for 2 people to stand. Julian and Evelyn wore modernized rebreather suits, bulky and stiff, with heavy magnetic boots to anchor them to the riverbed if they had to leave the bell. The descent was a slow, agonizing drop into nothingness. Through the thick quartz viewport, Julian watched the dirty green light of the surface fade into absolute black. The only sound was the hiss of the oxygen scrubbers and the creaking of the steel cable lowering them into the abyss. 100 feet. Silas's voice crackled over the comms, distorted by static. "Passing the silt layer. Visibility is 0. Julian held the key. It was vibrating, a low thrumming that resonated against the steel hull of the bell. It was a compass. "Right," Julian whispered. "Tell him to drift starboard." "Starboard." Silas. Evelyn relayed into her headset. You sure? Silas asked. Sonar shows heavy debris, twisted metal. That's the train graveyard. Do it, Julian commanded. The bell shuddered as the thrusters fired, pushing them sideways. Suddenly, a shape loomed out of the darkness. It was massive, a wall of jagged iron and concrete. It was the breach. In 1909, a tunnel boring machine had hit a pocket of pressurized silt, and the river had come rushing in, killing 20 men and sealing the tunnel forever. There, Julian pointed. Inside the jagged tear in the tunnel wall, something was glowing. It was a faint, rhythmic pulse of amber light. Set us down, Evelyn ordered. The bell clanged against something hard, likely the roof of a submerged train car. The winch stopped. You have 30 minutes of air in the umbilical, Silas warned. Don't wander off. Julian cycled the pressure in the airlock. The water rushed in, waist deep, cold enough to burn even through the suit. He opened the hatch and stepped out into the crushing weight of the Hudson. The silence was absolute. The riverbed was a moonscape of mud and twisted rebar. Julian turned on his shoulder lamps. The beam cut through the murk, illuminating the wreckage. It was a tomb. The skeletons of rail cars lay on their sides like dead whales. But Julian wasn't looking at the trains. He was looking at the tunnel wall. Embedded in the concrete, untouched by rot or rust, was a massive circular door. It was made of the same matte black metal as the key. It was 20 feet tall, covered in Art Deco reliefs depicting men struggling against rising tides. The third door. Evelyn's voice was tinny in his earpiece. She was right behind him, her movements sluggish in the heavy current. Julian approached the center of the door. There was no keyhole. Instead, there was a complex arrangement of gears and pistons that looked like the internal mechanism of a bank vault, but exposed. It's a pressure lock, Julian realized. It uses the weight of the river to stay sealed. He raised the key. The artifact sensed the mechanism. The gyroscope spun violently, shedding sparks of blue light into the water. The shaft of the key extended, splitting into 3 prongs. Julian jammed the key into the central gear. Clang. The sound vibrated through the water, shaking his bones. He tried to turn it. It wouldn't budge. It's too heavy, Julian grunted, bracing his magnetic boots against the door. I can't turn it manually. Use the suit's hydraulics, Evelyn shouted. Julian engaged the servos in his suit arms. The motors whined. He pushed with everything he had. The key began to glow brighter, the blue light bleeding into the black metal of the door. The lines on his arm flared with pain, as if the key were drawing strength directly from his muscles. Groan. The massive gear turned. 1 click. 2. A shudder ran through the riverbed. Silt exploded upwards, clouding their vision. Julian, wait, Evelyn said, her voice sharp. Look at the readout on the door. Julian wiped the silt from a glass panel next to the gear. It was a gauge. Pressure differential. Critical. If you open this, Evelyn said, the pressure inside is lower than the river. The water will rush in like a cannon. It'll tear us apart. It's an airlock, Julian argued. We cycle it. We go in. Then we drain the vestibule. No. Evelyn grabbed his arm. Something is wrong. Look at the sonar. Julian glanced at the heads-up display in his helmet. Ping. Then another. Above them, hovering silently in the black water, were 3 sleek, torpedo-shaped drones. They were painted black with no markings, but the red optical sensors on their noses were unmistakable. Frost, Julian hissed. Silas, Evelyn screamed into the comms. Pull us up. We have company. Static. Then a click. Sorry, darling. Silas's voice came through, clear and cold. Frost made a compelling offer. Retiring to the Keys sounds better than hauling scrap. Silas, you son of a... Snap. The umbilical cable connecting their suits to the diving bell above detached. The hoses flailed wildly, spewing bubbles. They were cut loose. He cut the air. Evelyn gasped. We're on emergency reserves. 10 minutes. The drones pivoted. Their undersides opened, revealing harpoon guns. "We have to open the door," Julian yelled. "It's the only way. The pressure will kill us." "Not if we time it." Julian turned back to the mechanism. The drones fired. THWNK. A harpoon slammed into the concrete inches from Julian's head. He grabbed the key with both hands. He screamed, channeling the pain in his arm into the metal. The key didn't just turn. It liquefied. It flowed into the gears, fusing with the mechanism. Open. The door didn't slide open. It irised. A vortex of suction grabbed them. It was like being sucked out of an airplane. The river water roared into the opening, dragging Julian and Evelyn with it. They were tumbled, smashed against the sides of a polished metal chute, spinning in a chaotic washing machine of darkness and foam. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. They hit a steel grate with a bone-jarring thud. The water drained away through the floor instantly, sucked down by massive pumps. Julian gasped, ripping off his helmet. The air was thin, smelling of ozone and copper. They were inside. He scrambled over to Evelyn. She was lying on the grate, coughing up water. She was alive. Julian looked around. They were in a cylindrical chamber, vast and dim. The walls were lined with massive glass tubes filled with bubbling green liquid. In the center of the room sat a machine that looked like a beating heart made of brass and chrome. "The pump room," Julian whispered. "Vane didn't just build a tunnel. He built a circulatory system." "For what?" Evelyn wheezed, sitting up. "For the city," Julian said. He walked toward the machine. The key was still in his hand, but it had changed again. It was smaller now, sleeker, and it pulsed in time with his own heartbeat. "Julian," Evelyn said, her voice trembling. "We're not alone." Julian froze. He felt it too. Presence. From the shadows on the far side of the chamber, a figure emerged. But it wasn't Caleb Frost. It was a man in a wheelchair, hooked up to a portable breathing apparatus. He was ancient, his skin like parchment, his eyes milky white. But the suit he wore was immaculate, a 1930s pinstripe. "You took your time," the old man rasped. Julian raised the key. "Who are you?" "I am the caretaker," the man wheezed. "I have been watching the pressure gauges for 80 years, waiting for someone to come and relieve the valve." "Where is Caleb Frost?" Evelyn asked, standing up unsteadily. "The interloper?" The old man smiled, revealing metallic teeth. "He is outside, trying to drill through the hull. He is impatient. He does not understand the machine." The room shuddered. A dull boom echoed from the ceiling. "He's using depth charges," Julian said. "He's going to bring the river down on us." "He wants the core," the caretaker said, pointing a trembling finger at the brass heart machine. "He thinks it generates power. He is a fool. It does not generate power. It generates probability." Julian looked at the machine. The Codex of Foundation in his bag felt suddenly heavy. "Probability?" Julian asked. "The city is a chaotic system," the old man said. "Millions of choices made every second. Vane built this machine to stabilize the variables, to ensure the city doesn't tear itself apart. But the machine is dying. It needs a new architect." The old man looked at Julian. Then he looked at Julian's hand. "You have the mark," the caretaker said. "You have merged." "I don't want to be an architect," Julian said. "I just want to stop Frost." "To stop him," the caretaker coughed, "you must use the machine, but there is a price." Suddenly, the airlock door they had tumbled through groaned. The metal began to buckle. Sparks showered down. "He's cutting through," Evelyn said. "Julian, we have to move." "The price?" Julian demanded, stepping toward the old man. "What is it?" The caretaker looked at Evelyn. "The machine requires 2 keys," the old man whispered. "One of metal, one of blood." Julian turned to Evelyn. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the machine, her face pale. "You knew," Julian said. The realization hit him like a physical blow. "That's why you brought me. That's why you needed me to hold the key. I'm the operator. You're the fuel." "No," Evelyn said, stepping back. "I didn't know it would be like this." I thought it just needed a genetic sample. A fingerprint. Blood is fuel, the caretaker intoned. Vane sacrificed his own daughter to start the engine in 1938. The lineage must continue. The ceiling buckled again. Water sprayed into the chamber. Julian, Evelyn pleaded. Frost will kill us both. If we start the machine, we can control the facility. We can flush him out. And kill you, Julian shouted. We don't have a choice. A section of the wall exploded inward. Debris and high-pressure water knocked the caretaker out of his chair. Men in black combat diving suits poured through the breach, rifles raised. Caleb Frost strode in behind them. He wasn't wearing a mask. He held a device that emitted a high-pitched sonic whine. Touching family reunion, Frost sneered. He pointed the sonic device at Julian. Pain. White-hot agony blinded Julian. The key in his hand screamed, the metal contracting. He fell to his knees. Secure the girl, Frost ordered. Hook her up to the intake. Two mercenaries grabbed Evelyn. She fought, kicking and screaming, but they dragged her toward a glass capsule connected to the brass heart. No! Julian tried to stand, but the sonic waves pinned him down. You see, Mercer. Frost walked over, looking down at him. I did my homework. I knew about the blood price. That's why I let you keep her. You were the delivery boy. Frost kicked Julian in the chest, knocking the wind out of him. He reached down and grabbed Julian's wrist, looking at the glowing lines. And you, Frost smiled. You're the spark plug. Frost dragged Julian toward the control console of the machine. He forced Julian's hand, the hand fused with the key, into a slot on the dashboard. Turn it, Frost commanded, pressing the muzzle of a pistol to Julian's temple. Turn it and give me the city. Julian looked at Evelyn. She was inside the glass capsule now. The liquid was rising around her ankles. She looked at him through the glass, her eyes filled with tears, and she mouthed one word. Reverse. Julian looked at the console. The gears were designed to spin clockwise to stabilize the flow, to maintain order. But chaos spun the other way. Julian felt the key pulse. It was waiting for his command. He could feel the entire river pressing down on the station. He could feel the tectonic plates beneath the city. Do it! Frost cocked the hammer. Julian grit his teeth. He looked Frost in the eye. You want the river? Julian snarled. Take it. Julian didn't turn the key. He pushed it deep into the mechanism, and then he mentally screamed at the key to release. He didn't activate the machine. He broke the governor. Crack. The sound was deafening. The brass heart seized. The glass tubes lining the walls shattered. What did you do? Frost screamed, backing away. I opened the floodgates, Julian gasped. The pressure in the room reversed. Instead of holding the water back, the machine began to suck it in from every pipe in the city. The noise was like a jet engine. The glass capsule holding Evelyn shattered. She fell out, coughing, onto the wet floor. Run! Julian yelled, grabbing her hand. The whole station is imploding, Frost shouted, his men panicking as water jets erupted from the floor. Not imploding, Julian yelled over the roar. Flushing. He dragged Evelyn toward a large pneumatic tube labeled Emergency Discharge, Sector 4. That's a waste pipe, Evelyn screamed. Better than a tomb. Julian threw the hatch open. The suction was incredible. He looked back one last time. Frost was trying to pull the key out of the console, but it was stuck fast, glowing blinding white. The water was rising to his waist. Mercer! Frost screamed. Julian jumped, pulling Evelyn with him into the dark, slick throat of the pipe. They were fired like a bullet through the subterranean anatomy of the city. Speed blurred everything. They twisted through miles of darkness, tumbling through water, sludge, and air. Julian shielded Evelyn's head as they slammed into bends and drops. He felt his consciousness fading. The exertion of the key had drained him. The glowing lines on his arm were burning out. Finally, they were spat out into stagnant air. They splashed into a shallow, warm pool. Silence returned, broken only by the drip of water. Julian lay on his back, staring up. He couldn't move. His right arm felt like lead. Julian. Evelyn's voice was weak. She crawled over to him. "We made it," he whispered. He lifted his right hand. The key was gone. "Where is it?" He panicked, sitting up. "It's not gone," Evelyn whispered, staring at his arm with horror and awe. Julian looked. The brass key wasn't in his hand. It was his hand. From the elbow down, his flesh had been replaced or covered by an intricate lattice of living brass and matte black metal. His fingers were segmented, like the tumblers of a lock. The gyroscope was embedded in his palm, spinning slowly beneath a layer of transparent skin. He flexed his fingers. The sound of clockwork clicking echoed in the cavern. "I am the key," Julian whispered. He looked around. They were in a vast underground grotto. But it wasn't a cave. The walls were lined with doors. Thousands of them. Floating in the air, defying gravity, were staircases leading to nowhere. "Where are we?" Evelyn asked, shivering. Julian stood up. He felt a hum in his metal hand. It was pulling him toward the center of the room. "We're not under the river anymore," Julian said, looking at the impossible geometry around them. "We fell through the cracks." He walked to the edge of the pool. In the distance, he saw a structure that looked like the Vane building, but upside down. "This is the interstitio," Julian said. "The space between. We found the fourth door." "And Frost. He's stuck in the real world," Julian said, clenching his metal fist. "But now we have to find a way back before this place drives us mad." He looked at the infinite doors. "Part 4, he murmured. "The labyrinth."